A 7-year-old brought a jar of coins to the kids' clinic. An hour later, 520 motorcycles were lined up outside. He set the jar down on the counter with both hands like it was made of glass and said, "If this isn't enough, can you still help her?" Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Because what happened next didn't start with a celebrity donation or a news crew chasing a feel-good story. It started with a 7-year-old boy in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, standing on tiptoe in the lobby of a kids' clinic, trying not to cry while grown-ups debated rules like his sister's life was a line item. The front desk sat behind scratched safety glass. A sign was taped to it like a warning. Balances must be paid before services. No exceptions. Tessa Morgan had been working that desk for 5 years. She'd seen parents beg. She'd seen them rage. She'd seen them go quiet in the way people go quiet right before they break. But she had never, not once, seen a child carry that look. His name was Noah Briggs. He was 7, sandy hair, cheeks red from wiping his nose with his sleeve. No backpack, no parent behind him, just that jar. An old pickle jar packed so full of coins the glass looked swollen. Tessa looked past him anyway because her brain refused to accept the obvious. "Sweetie, where's your mom or dad?" Noah swallowed hard. "Mom's at work." His voice wobbled, but he forced it steady. "They called her. They said Mia can't get her next thing unless we pay today." Mia. Tessa knew that name. 5-year-old Mia Briggs in pediatric oncology, the kid who said thank you even when she was vomiting from chemo. Mia's schedule was taped behind Tessa's monitor with a red star beside today's date. Noah pushed the jar forward. Coins clinked loud in the quiet lobby. Pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, a few old half-dollars. On top sat one wrinkled dollar bill like it had been saved for weeks. Noah's fingers were red from carrying the weight. Tessa slid the jar under the small gap in the glass. It scraped, then dropped into her hands with a heavy thud. "What's your last name?" she asked, already typing. "Briggs, Noah Briggs, Mia Briggs." The system loaded. "Balance due, $4,812.43. The number hit Tessa like a punch. That wasn't a missed copay. That was rent money. That was we don't have it money. Noah watched her face like he could see the screen through the glass. "Is it enough?" he whispered. Behind Tessa, heels clicked fast on tile. Diane Hargrove, the clinic manager, stepped out of her office like she'd been summoned by the sound of coins. Perfect hair, straight lanyard, eyes already tight. "What is that?" Diane asked. "It's Mia Briggs's brother," Tessa said quietly. Diane leaned in, saw the balance, and her mouth hardened. "We talked about this account," she said, low enough that the waiting room couldn't hear. "We cannot keep providing services without payment. We're being reviewed. We're at the edge." "He's 7, Tessa whispered back, "and he's alone." Diane's eyes flicked to Noah. For a half-second, the human in her surfaced. Then the policy snapped back over her face like armor. "Noah," Diane said, voice turning sweet in the way adults get sweet when they're about to say no. "Honey, we need a parent. We need proper arrangements. You can't just—" "I can," Noah said, not loud, not rude, just certain. I counted it. He dug in his hoodie pocket and pulled out a folded paper, creased soft like it had been opened 100 times. He pressed it to the glass. For MIA. Under it were messy tallies and a total written twice like he didn't trust his own math. Total. 79.64. A 7-year-old had done the only math he understood. Coins plus love equals help. Tessa felt her throat tighten. Diane exhaled, slow, controlled. "Noah, I'm sorry," she said. "We can take this as a partial payment, but it won't cover—" "No," Noah said, sharper now, fear turning into something fierce. "It's not partial. It's all I have. You have to do Mia's next thing. You have to." People were watching now. No one looked away. Diane's cheeks flushed. "Tessa," she hissed, "call social services. We can't have an unattended minor—" "No." Tessa surprised herself with how hard the word came out. "I'm calling Dr. Patel." "That's not protocol," Diane snapped. "Neither is turning away a 7-year-old holding a jar of coins," Tessa said, and picked up the phone. She dialed. On the third ring, Dr. Priya Patel answered. "Front desk?" "It's Noah Briggs," Tessa said. "He's here, alone, with a jar." Diane is saying today is suspended. A pause, then Dr. Patel's voice changed. I'm coming out. Tessa hung up. Noah stood perfectly still, like if he moved, the moment would shatter. I don't want her to die, he whispered. Diane's expression flickered, then her phone buzzed. She glanced down and went pale. She turned the screen toward Tessa just long enough for her to read it. Final notice, non-payment, procedures suspended, effective immediately. A door opened in the hallway. Footsteps came fast. Dr. Patel appeared, white coat flaring, eyes locking on Noah first. She crossed the lobby without hesitation, then crouched so she was at his level. Noah, she said, gentle but urgent. Where's your mom? At work, he said again, like it was the only answer in the world that mattered. Dr. Patel stood and faced Diane. We are not releasing Mia today. We are not delaying her infusion. Diane lifted her hands, helpless and angry at once. Priya, we can't. Collections is sending a representative. If we break suspension, they can shut the entire clinic down. Everyone loses. Dr. Patel's voice stayed calm. If we delay, Mia loses. Today. Silence. Heavy, final. Then Dr. Patel looked back at Noah. Come with me, she said. You can see your sister. Noah's breath hitched, and he nodded so fast it looked like it hurt. Tessa buzzed him through the side door behind the desk. Diane didn't stop it. She just stood there with her phone in her hand, like the message had handcuffed her. They moved down the hall. Machines beeped softly behind closed doors. Room 4 was half open. Mia lay small in the bed, eyes closed, IV taped to her arm. Her skin was pale in that way that made adults look away because it didn't feel fair to look too long. Noah stepped to the bedside and swallowed a sob so hard his whole body shook. Mia, he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open. For a second she looked confused, then her face softened when she saw him. Noah? Her voice was thin. I brought the money, he said quickly, like saying it out loud would make it true. I brought the jar. You're going to get the medicine. Mia's lips twitched like she was trying to smile. You're not supposed to be here alone, she breathed. Noah didn't answer. He just took her hand and held on. Dr. Patel checked Mia's monitor. Fever. Heart rate too high. A schedule on the wall that said, Infusion 1 p.m. Dr. Patel stepped back into the hall with Tessa. We start pre-meds, she said. Document emergency stabilization. It buys us minutes. And after that? Tessa asked, voice tight. Dr. Patel looked at the jar sitting on the counter where Noah had placed it like an offering. There's one more thing, Dr. Patel said. The Briggs file. Cal Briggs. Tessa's stomach flipped. Her dad. Dr. Patel nodded once. He used to bring people here, riders. Tessa remembered. Leather vests in the lobby years ago, quiet men holding toys, a fundraiser photo on the wall, then the story after. Cal's crash. The funeral. Tessa walked to the jar, hands trembling, and turned the lid. A faded sticker clung to it, a winged wheel. And in careful child handwriting across the top, Dad, call a phone number followed. Tessa looked at Dr. Patel. Noah put this here. Dr. Patel didn't hesitate. Dial it. Diane's voice snapped from behind them. Priya, if you bring outsiders into this, they're already in this, doctor. Patel said, and took Tessa's phone. She dialed the number from the jar and put it on speaker. 1 ring, 2, 3. Noah's voice floated from room 4, low and desperate, telling Mia he'd stay right there. On the 4th ring, a man answered. His voice was gravel and engine smoke. Griff. Dr. Patel took a slow breath. This is Dr. Priya Patel at Bright Steps Kids Clinic. Cal Briggs's son is here. His daughter's treatment was suspended for non-payment. Silence on the line. Then, faint in the background, came the sound of movement, chairs scraping, boots hitting floor. What's the address? Griff asked. Dr. Patel gave it. And how long do we have? Griff said. Dr. Patel looked at the clock over the nurse's station. Less than an hour, she answered. Outside, beyond the clinic's glass doors, a low rumble rolled through the air, deep, heavy, multiplying, like thunder that didn't belong to the sky. The rumble grew fast, like something big waking up under the pavement. At first, Tessa tried to tell herself it was just one bike passing the clinic, then another. Then a deeper tone joined it, heavier engines, the kind that didn't hurry, the kind that arrived like they owned the road. Diane was already pacing in the hallway, phone pressed to her ear. "I'm telling you," she hissed, glancing toward the lobby windows, "we cannot be the clinic that lets a crowd take over the property. I don't care who they are. If they breach—" She stopped mid-sentence when the first motorcycle rolled into view. It didn't roar. It didn't rev. It just glided into the lot and parked. A man swung off, broad shoulders, gray beard, leather vest zipped halfway. He looked at the building like he was counting exits. Then a second bike arrived, then 4, then 10. Tessa's mouth went dry. Dr. Patel was already moving. She snapped on gloves, checked Mia's chart, and spoke to a nurse in a clipped tone that meant this was not a conversation. "Start pre-meds," she said. "Now. Zofran, steroids, fluids." "Document stabilization. We're buying time." The nurse nodded and pushed the cart toward room 4. Inside, Noah sat on the edge of Mia's bed with both feet dangling. He held her hand with both of his. "You're cold," he told her, voice small. "I can get you another blanket." Mia's eyes stayed half open. "Don't go," she whispered. "I won't," Noah promised instantly, like the idea of leaving had never even existed. The IV pump clicked as the nurse adjusted the line. Mia flinched and Noah squeezed her hand tighter. "It's okay," he said too fast. "It's okay. It's just medicine." He said the word like it was magic. In the hallway, Tessa ran back to the front desk and looked down at the jar of coins, still sitting there like a witness. She hadn't counted it. She didn't need to. $79.64, 4,812 due. And now, a growing wall of motorcycles outside. Diane stormed to the desk. "Lock the front doors," she ordered. Tessa stared at her. "You want to lock the doors with patients inside?" "I want to keep the situation contained," Diane snapped. "We have a collections representative arriving any minute. If they see—" As if summoned by the word, the clinic's front door opened. Not a rider. A man in a navy suit with a slim briefcase stepped into the lobby as if he belonged there. He was in his mid-40s, hair combed too perfectly, smile sharpened at the edges. He scanned the room once and then looked straight at Diane like he'd done this dance 100 times. "Ms. Hargrove," he said. "Darren Klein, Commonwealth Medical Recovery." Tessa felt the air change. Waiting parents quieted. Someone shifted a child on their hip. The whole lobby seemed to lean closer without moving. Diane forced a professional smile. "Mr. Klein," she said, already sweating. "We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." "I adjusted my schedule," Klein replied pleasantly. His gaze slid to the jar on the counter. Then to the hall leading toward oncology. Then to the windows, where bikes were now filling every visible parking space. His smile didn't change, but his eyes tightened. "I can see you're having a day." "This is a pediatric clinic," Diane said, voice firm. "You can't walk in like this with families present." Klein opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder as if the lobby was his conference room. "I can, actually," he said. "We have a final notice of service suspension on multiple accounts, including Briggs. I'm here to enforce compliance." Tessa couldn't help herself. "Enforce," she repeated, "on a 5-year-old. Klein finally looked at her, still smiling. "Ma'am, I understand emotions run high when children are involved," he said, as if he was reading from a script. "But we're discussing the viability of an entire clinic. If you keep operating while suspended, you put everyone at risk." Dr. Patel came out of the hallway at that exact moment, her coat open, her expression calm in a way that made her look dangerous. "You must be Mr. Klein," she said. Klein's eyes flicked to her badge. "Dr. Patel, yes, we've spoken by phone before." Dr. Patel didn't offer her hand. "My patient is unstable," she said. "Her infusion is medically necessary today." Klein's smile thinned. "And your patient's account is delinquent," he said, "which is why the suspension is in effect." "Suspension doesn't override emergent care," Dr. Patel replied. "It does when your facility agreement states you must halt non-emergency procedures on delinquent accounts," Klein said smoothly. "And if you don't comply, the clinic's insurance contracts will be notified, licensing will be reviewed, and a child dies because paperwork was filed faster than compassion," Tessa said before she could stop herself. The waiting room erupted in small sounds. Gasp, whisper, a sharp inhale. Diane shot Tessa a look that could have cut glass. "That's enough," she hissed. Klein lifted one hand, soothing. "No one is saying anyone should die," he said. "We're saying the clinic must operate within policy. If the family can pay a minimum arrangement today, the suspension can be lifted." Dr. Patel stared at him. "Minimum arrangement," she repeated. "You mean money, today?" "Correct," Klein said, and his eyes drifted to the jar again as if it offended him. "A deposit, a payment plan agreement, something formal?" Diane swallowed. "What amount?" she asked, already knowing. Klein flipped a page, then said it like it was nothing. 1,000 today to reinstate services pending a plan." Tessa felt sick. Outside, another wave of engines rolled in. Not aggressive, just more. The lot was full now. Bikes lined the curb, then they lined the street. Then they started filling the side access road like a slow-moving river of chrome and black paint. A mother in the waiting room whispered, "How many are there?" Nobody answered because no one could count. Dr. Patel leaned closer to Klein. "There's a 7-year-old boy sitting next to his sister right now," she said quietly. "He carried a jar of coins here because you people told his mother you'd stop treatment. Do you understand what you've done to that child?" Klein's smile didn't move. "I'm not here to debate morality," he said. "I'm here to ensure compliance." Diane's phone buzzed again. She glanced down, and her face tightened. Another message, another warning. She looked trapped between the suit in front of her and the engines outside. Tessa's eyes went to the glass doors. The first rider had taken position near the entrance, hands folded in front of him, not blocking anyone, just standing like a post. Another rider stood a few feet away, then another. Quiet, still, like they were guarding something. Then the doors opened again. A man stepped inside, taller than the rest, older leather jacket, heavy boots, a silver chain disappearing under his collar. He moved with slow confidence, like he didn't need to announce himself because the room would feel it anyway. He didn't speak to Tessa, he didn't look at Diane. He walked straight toward Dr. Patel, stopped at a respectful distance, and nodded once. "Doc," he said. Dr. Patel's shoulders dropped by a fraction, as if the air had finally reached her lungs. "Griff," she answered. Klein turned, his professional mask shifting into something sharper. "And you are?" Griff looked at him the way you look at a stain you didn't order. "Name's Griff Madsen," he said. "Cal Briggs was my brother." The waiting room went dead quiet. Even the kids stopped fidgeting, sensing something bigger than them. Klein adjusted his cuff as if it mattered. "I'm going to ask you to step outside," he said, tone still polite but now threaded with authority. "This is a medical facility. We can't have—" "You don't have anything," Griff cut in, still calm. "We're not here to threaten anybody. We're here because a 7-year-old called the number his dad left him." Griff's eyes flicked once toward the hallway where Noah and Mia were. Dr. Patel didn't speak. She didn't need to. Griff's jaw tightened. "How much?" Diane blinked. "What?" "How much do you say you need today to stop this?" Griff asked, eyes on Klein now. Klein's smile returned, hungry. 1,000 to reinstate, as I said," he replied. "And then a formal plan." Griff nodded as if he'd expected that answer. He turned toward the glass doors and lifted 2 fingers to his mouth. He didn't whistle. He didn't shout. He simply raised his hand, palm down, and made a small motion, like turning a dial. Outside, the rumble changed, not louder, more organized. Engines began to shut off in waves, a rolling silence settling over the lot. The quiet was worse than the noise. It made the presence feel heavier. Griff looked back at Dr. Patel. "You need an hour," he said. Dr. Patel nodded once. "I need 30 minutes," she replied. "If we can get her stabilized and into infusion on time," Griff's expression tightened. "Then you have 30. Klein cleared his throat, trying to reclaim control. "Mr. Madsen," he said, "I'm going to have to insist that your group disperses. This could be considered intimidation." Griff didn't even glance at the bikes. "We're standing on public property," he said. "We're quiet. We're sober. We're not blocking the entrance. Nobody's threatened you." Klein's eyes narrowed. "Your presence is coercive." Griff finally smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Your paperwork is predatory," he said. Which one of us came to a children's clinic to take something away today? The words hit the room like a slap. A father in the waiting room murmured, "Damn." Diane looked like she might faint. Tessa's hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the edge of the desk. In the hall, Noah heard the change outside and looked up. "What is that?" he asked, eyes wide. Mia blinked slowly. "Thunder?" she whispered. Noah slid off the bed and pressed his face to the small window in the door. He could only see a slice of the parking lot from there, but even that slice was impossible to understand. Rows of bikes, men standing shoulder to shoulder, heads turned toward the building like they were waiting for a signal. Noah's mouth fell open. Dr. Patel stepped into the room and crouched beside him. "Noah," she said gently, "did you call that number on the jar?" Noah nodded, frightened now. "I didn't know who it was," he admitted. "It was on Dad's thing. Mom said don't call it, but they said Mia couldn't." Dr. Patel put a hand on his shoulder. "You did what you thought you had to do," she said. "Stay with Mia, okay? Hold her hand. Talk to her." Noah nodded hard and climbed back up onto the edge of the bed. In the lobby, Klein's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up at Diane and Dr. Patel with a new coldness. "I've already notified our compliance line," he said, "and local authorities. If this escalates, it won't be on me." Griff didn't move. "Call whoever you want," he said. "You'll still have to look that kid in the eye when you explain why his sister didn't get her medicine." Diane's voice cracked. "Griff, please," she whispered. "If they shut us down, every child here, then don't let them," Griff said simply. And then, as if the universe wanted to prove how fragile time was, a nurse sprinted into the lobby from the oncology hallway, face drained white. "Dr. Patel," she gasped, "Mia's vitals are dropping. Her fever's climbing fast. We need to start infusion early or she's going to crash." Dr. Patel turned so fast her coat snapped. Klein stepped forward automatically, raising the folder like a shield. "Doctor, if you proceed while suspended." Dr. Patel didn't stop walking. She looked him dead in the face, voice low and absolute. "Watch me." She disappeared down the hallway, the nurse right behind her. Klein's smile vanished. Griff's eyes hardened, and from outside, a new sound cut through the silence. Sirens, close, coming fast, doubling, then tripling, until they were right on top of the clinic doors, and the first police cruiser skidded into the lot as the riders turned their heads in unison, and Griff lifted his hand again, not to fight, not to run, but to hold the line. The first cruiser didn't come in slow. It sliced into the lot with lights flashing, tires crunching gravel at the edge of the curb. A second followed, then a third. The sirens cut through the morning like a blade, sharp, urgent, designed to make bodies move. But the riders didn't scatter. They didn't step forward either. They held their positions in clean lines, leaving the entrance clear, leaving the fire lane open, leaving just enough space for anyone to walk in and out without touching a single leather vest. That was the point. Presence without a spark. The lead officer climbed out of the cruiser, hand resting near his belt. He scanned the scene, hundreds of bikes, men and women standing shoulder to shoulder, some in club patches, some in plain jackets, all facing the clinic with the same stillness. His eyes went to Griff immediately, like he could feel where the center of gravity was. "You in charge?" the officer called. Griff took one step forward, only one. He didn't crowd, he didn't puff up. He simply existed. "I'm the one you'll talk to," Griff said. The officer nodded once, appreciating the lack of drama. "Name?" "Griff Madsen." The officer's face twitched in recognition, not fear, memory. He'd heard that name before, maybe at a charity ride, maybe on a report that ended without arrests because nobody had actually broken a law. "What's going on, Mr. Madsen?" the officer asked. "We got a call about intimidation and an unruly crowd." Griff tilted his head toward the clinic doors. "We're here because a kid walked in with a jar of coins and got told his sister's treatment was suspended," he said. "We're not blocking the entrance. We're not threatening anyone. We're standing." The officer's gaze tracked the lines of riders, the open walkway, the clear driveway. It was hard to argue with the facts in front of him. Inside the clinic, Darren Klein watched through the glass like a man waiting for a cavalry charge that wasn't coming. Diane's hands were shaking. "This is going to get us shut down," she whispered to Tessa, as if saying it quietly would keep it from becoming true. Tessa didn't answer. She could hear her own heartbeat. She could also hear the faintest sound from the hall, machines, hurried footsteps, Dr. Patel's voice snapping orders. "Get the infusion ready," Dr. Patel said to the oncology nurse. "If they want to argue paperwork, they can do it while I keep her alive." Mia's monitor beeped faster now, like it was warning them they were running out of time. Noah stood at her bedside, face pressed close to her hand. "You're okay," he whispered, over and over. "You're okay. You're okay." Mia's eyes fluttered open. "Why, are you talking like that?" she asked, breath thin. Noah's lip trembled. He tried to smile anyway. "Because Dad says if you say stuff out loud, it listens." Mia's fingers twitched in his. "Dad didn't say that," she breathed. Noah froze for half a second, caught. Then he leaned in closer. "He did," he insisted softly. "He told me." And Mia, too tired to fight it, let herself believe. Back in the lobby, the front door opened again, this time with purpose. A woman with a shoulder bag and a camera stepped in, eyes already searching for the story. A local reporter. Tessa recognized her from the morning news. Kara Lynn, the kind of journalist who didn't wait for permission when something smelled wrong. Kara's gaze landed on the jar of coins on the counter, then the tight faces, then the suit with the briefcase, then the wall of bikes outside. She walked straight to the desk. "Hi," she said, voice calm, professional. "I'm Kara Lynn, Channel 8. We heard there was a situation here involving a pediatric patient." Diane stepped forward instantly. "No comment," she said too fast. "This is a private medical facility." Kara's eyebrows lifted. "I'm not asking for medical details," she replied. "I'm asking why there are hundreds of motorcycles outside a kids' clinic and police in the parking lot." Diane's mouth opened, then shut. Klein saw his opening. He stepped toward Kara like he belonged on camera. "Ms. Lynn," he said, smooth as oil, "I'm Darren Klein with Commonwealth Medical Recovery. We're here to ensure compliance with standard billing protocol. Unfortunately, some individuals have chosen to what?" Kara asked, tilting her head. "Stand outside?" Klein's smile sharpened. "Intimidate staff," he said. From the hallway, Dr. Patel returned to the lobby at a fast walk, eyes blazing. "That's a lie," she said, loud enough that everyone heard. Klein's posture stiffened. Dr. Patel didn't look at him. She looked at Kara. "A child is in the back right now with a fever spike and dropping vitals," she said. "Treatment is being delayed because of money." Kara's eyes widened just slightly. "Are you saying a child's care is being suspended for non-payment?" "I'm saying the clinic received a suspension notice and a collections representative is attempting to enforce it," Dr. Patel said, "and I'm saying I won't." Klein stepped between them. "We have policies," he said, voice still camera-friendly. "We have contracts. We have—" Dr. Patel cut him off. "You have a number," she said. "That's all you have. A number on a screen. And you're treating it like it matters more than a 5-year-old. The waiting room murmured again. Parents shifted. Someone whispered, "That's sick." Kara's camera swung to the jar. "Is that connected?" she asked. Tessa's throat tightened. She should have kept quiet, she knew it, but the moment felt bigger than the job. "That jar is what the kid brought to pay," Tessa said. Klein snapped his head toward her. "Ma'am, he's 7, Tessa added. "He came alone." Kara's expression changed. The story locked into place. "Where is he?" she asked softly. Diane's face went rigid. "No," she said. "Absolutely not. You're not going back there. HIPAA, privacy." Kara raised her hands. "I'm not going into treatment rooms," she said. "But I can stand in the hall. I can speak to the clinic manager. I can speak to the collections company. And I can show the public what's happening outside." Klein's confidence wavered for the first time. Public attention was not something a collections operation ever wanted. Outside, the lead officer was still talking to Griff. More cruisers arrived, not with sirens now, but with that heavy, cautious roll that meant they weren't sure what they were walking into. The officer kept his voice low. "You got numbers out here I can't even estimate," he said. "If one person decides to get stupid, this goes sideways fast." Griff nodded. "Then it won't," he said. "You can't control 500 people." Griff's eyes stayed steady. "Watch me." He turned slightly and raised his hand again. The motion was small, but the effect was immediate. Riders shifted into cleaner spacing, clearing the sidewalk even wider. Helmets came off, hands went visible. A few stepped back from the curb like they'd rehearsed it. The officer's jaw tightened, impressed despite himself. "Why are you really here?" he asked. Griff looked past him at the clinic windows. "Because Cal Briggs saved my life," he said quietly. "And his kid is in there right now trying to save his sister with a jar of change." The officer's gaze flicked to the building, then back to Griff. "You understand how this looks?" "It looks like people finally showed up for a kid who got left alone," Griff replied. Inside, Klein's phone buzzed again. He checked it, then turned to Diane, voice dropping low, sharp. "We need you to regain control," he said. "This is becoming a media event. If you proceed with infusion under suspension, my office will report the breach immediately." Diane looked at Dr. Patel like she was begging her to stop. "Priya," she whispered, "please, if we lose our contracts, every child here—" Dr. Patel's eyes held hers. "Every child here is already losing," she said, "just slower." Then the oncology nurse burst into the lobby again, eyes frantic. "Dr. Patel, Mia's oxygen is dropping. We need to start the infusion now, not in 10 minutes. Now." Klein stepped forward, folder raised like a weapon. "Doctor, if you—" Dr. Patel looked at him with a calm that felt like a final warning. "Move," she said. Klein didn't. Griff, still inside the clinic now, took one slow step toward him. Not threatening, not shouting, just stepping. And somehow that single step made Klein's confidence collapse like cheap cardboard. He moved aside. Dr. Patel didn't waste a second. She turned and strode back toward oncology, the nurse right behind her. Kara lifted her camera toward Klein. "Mr. Klein," she said, voice sharp, "are you attempting to stop a pediatric infusion over a debt?" Klein swallowed. "I'm attempting to ensure policy compliance," he said. "And if the child deteriorates?" Kara pressed. Klein's smile twitched, failing. "That's not a question for me," he said. Kara's eyes hardened. "It is now," she replied. In room 4, Noah watched nurses move fast around Mia. Tubing, gloves, Dr. Patel's voice steady, cutting through panic. Mia's face was grayish now, her eyes unfocused. Noah's chest tightened so hard he couldn't breathe. He slid off the bed and backed against the wall, clutching the edge of his hoodie like it could keep him from shaking apart. "Don't die," he whispered, barely audible. "Please don't." Mia's lips moved, but no sound came. The monitor beeped in a jagged rhythm. Dr. Patel's eyes flicked to Noah for a split second. She didn't have time to comfort him. She only had time to act. "Start," she ordered. The infusion began. And in that same moment, like the building itself couldn't hold two disasters at once, a loud, hard knock shook the front doors. Not a polite tap. A knock meant to be heard. Tessa looked up. The lead officer had stepped inside with another cop behind him, face set. "We need everyone outside to disperse," he said, loud enough to carry. "Now!" Griff didn't blink. He stood in the middle of the lobby like a pillar. "We're not moving," he said. The officer's jaw tightened. "Sir, this is your last warning." And just then, Klein leaned toward the officer and said something too quiet for the room to hear, something that made the officer's eyes flick to the oncology hallway like he'd just realized the real leverage wasn't the bikes at all. It was the child on that bed. The officer's eyes stayed on the oncology hallway like the word infusion had just turned into a weapon. He stepped farther into the lobby, the second cop shadowing him, and the mood shifted again. Less public disturbance, more enforcement. "Mr. Madsen," the officer said, voice controlled, "I need to understand what's happening in the back." Griff didn't move. "A kid's getting treatment," he said. "That's what's happening." The officer's jaw tightened. He glanced at Diane, then at Klein, then back to Griff. "I was told the clinic is under a service suspension," he said, "and the procedures are being performed anyway." Dr. Patel's voice floated from down the hall. Quick commands, metal clinks, the soft rush of oxygen. Klein stepped closer to the officer as if they were partners. "If a suspended facility continues elective procedures," he said, "it becomes a compliance violation. It can trigger immediate closure, potentially criminal—" "Don't," Griff said, quiet but sharp. Klein blinked, offended. "Excuse me." Griff finally looked at him. "Don't say criminal like you're talking about a robbery. You're talking about a 5-year-old on an IV." The officer raised a hand. "Stop," he said, not to Griff, but to the escalation itself. Then he faced Diane. "Ma'am, are you the manager?" Diane swallowed. "Yes." "Is this clinic suspended from providing services right now?" he asked. Diane's eyes flicked to Klein, to the folder, to the reporter, to the parents listening. Every word she said from this moment would be used against her. "We received a notice," Diane said carefully. It's disputed." Klein slid in immediately. "It's not disputed," he corrected, smooth as glass. "It's active." Dr. Patel reappeared in the hallway entrance, hands gloved, face set like steel. "It's contested," she said, "and the patient is unstable." The officer turned toward her. "Doctor, are you performing an infusion right now?" Dr. Patel didn't flinch. "Yes." Klein's mouth twitched like he'd just won something. "There," he said softly to the officer. "On record." Cara Lynn lifted her camera. "Officer," she asked, "are you about to stop a child's treatment?" The officer's face hardened at the camera. "Ma'am, step back," he warned. Cara didn't move. "The public has a right to know—" "The child has a right to privacy," the officer snapped, then looked at Dr. Patel again. "Doctor, I'm asking you directly. Is this an emergency?" Dr. Patel held his gaze. "Yes," she said. "If we delay, she can crash." The officer stared a beat too long, weighing it. Then he turned back to Klein. "If it's emergent, it's not my job to practice medicine," he said. Klein's smile returned, thin and practiced. "It is your job to ensure safety," he replied. "And the crowd outside is not safe." Griff's voice cut through. "We're not a crowd," he said. "We're a line." The officer stepped closer to the glass doors and looked out. Hundreds of riders, engines off now, helmets under arms, no yelling, no beer cans, no swaying, just bodies, still, facing the clinic like they were holding their breath as one. "You understand how this looks to the city," the officer said, turning back to Griff. 500 bikers outside a kids' clinic. People are panicking. I've got dispatch lighting up." Griff nodded once. "Then tell them the truth," he said. "We're here because the system told a kid his sister couldn't be treated unless he paid cash." Diane's voice broke. "Griff, please. If they shut us down—" Griff didn't even glance at her. He looked at the officer. "You want them to disperse?" he asked. "Yes," the officer said, immediate. "I need the lot cleared." Griff's jaw worked once, then he turned and walked to the doors. Tessa's stomach dropped. She thought he was about to refuse and everything would ignite. Instead, Griff pushed the doors open and stepped into the daylight. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. He simply lifted one hand and pointed, not at the clinic, at the sidewalk across the street. Then he made a slow, steady motion, like guiding traffic. The riders responded like a single machine. One row peeled back, then another, then another. Bikes started rolling out in silent lines, not revving, not showboating, just relocating. They didn't leave. They repositioned. From the lobby windows, it looked like a tide moving, controlled, deliberate, shifting from the clinic lot to public street frontage, leaving the entrance clear enough for an ambulance to fly in without touching a single tire. The officer watched it happen, stunned despite himself. Klein's eyes narrowed. He'd wanted chaos. He'd gotten discipline. Cara followed Griff to the doorway and filmed the relocation, whispering into her mic like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "They're moving," she said. "They're actually moving, orderly. This is not what I expected." Inside, Diane sagged against the counter like her legs had finally remembered gravity. "Thank you," she breathed, not sure who she was thanking. But Klein wasn't done. He opened his briefcase again and pulled out another paper, heavier stock, official seals, then slid it toward Diane like a blade across a table. "Now," he said quietly, "we resume compliance." Diane stared at it. "What is that?" "Notice of intent to escalate enforcement," Klein replied. "If procedures continue while suspended, we file for immediate injunction and notify the state board. That can result in your doors being closed today." Tessa's hands balled into fists. "You can't be serious." Klein looked at her as if she were a child. "I'm extremely serious." Dr. Patel stepped forward, voice low. "You're threatening the clinic while I'm treating a child." "I'm giving you an opportunity," Klein corrected. Stop the infusion. Stabilize. Transfer her to a facility that can comply. Dr. Patel's eyes went flat. Transfer takes hours, she said. We don't have hours. Klein's phone buzzed. He answered without breaking eye contact. Yes, he said softly. Then, good. Send him in. Diane's face tightened. Who? Klein didn't answer. The lobby doors opened again. A man in a windbreaker with an ID clipped to his chest walked in, followed by a woman carrying a tablet. State Health Compliance. Tessa's blood ran cold. The man scanned the room, then looked at Diane. Diane Hargrove? He asked. Yes, Diane whispered. We received a report of unauthorized procedures being conducted under suspension, the man said. We're here to observe and document. Klein folded his hands like a priest. Thank you for coming so quickly, he murmured. Kara's camera snapped toward the compliance officers. Are you state inspectors? She asked. The woman with the tablet raised her palm. No filming, she said. This is a medical environment. Kara lifted her other hand. I'm not filming patients, she insisted. I'm filming the enforcement action. No filming, the woman repeated, sharper. Kara didn't back off. Officer, she called, turning toward the lead cop, are you aware state compliance was called in to stop a pediatric infusion? The officer's face hardened again. This was spiraling into a political mess, and now there were too many witnesses. Dr. Patel stepped between the inspectors and the hall. You are not entering oncology, she said. The compliance man's mouth tightened. Doctor, if an infusion is running, it is, Dr. Patel said. And the facility is under suspension. It's contested, Dr. Patel snapped. The man raised his clipboard. Then we document the violation. And if the child dies while you document? Dr. Patel fired back. For the first time, the compliance man hesitated, because there were some lines that even paperwork didn't like crossing out loud. In room 4, Mia's face had a little color back in it, but her breathing was still shallow. The infusion drip ticked with merciless steadiness. Noah sat rigid at her side, eyes bouncing from the IV bag to the monitor to Dr. Patel's hands. He heard voices outside the door, harder voices now, official voices. He didn't understand words like suspension or injunction. He understood stop. He slipped off the bed and crept to the door window again. In the hallway, he saw Dr. Patel squared up like a shield. He saw the man with the clipboard. He saw Klein behind them, calm, like he was watching a plan unfold. Noah's throat tightened so hard it hurt. He yanked the door open before anyone could stop him. Stop doing this, he blurted, voice cracking. Every head turned. The compliance man blinked, startled. Dr. Patel spun. Noah! Noah stepped into the hall, shaking. You can't stop it, he said, louder now, pointing at the clipboard like it was the thing hurting Mia. She's right there. She's... His voice collapsed on itself. Tears came fast and hot, and he wiped them furiously with his sleeve like he was angry at them. Klein watched him with a small, irritated frown, as if Noah had entered a meeting he wasn't invited to. Kara's camera swung toward the hallway, and the woman with the tablet lunged to block her view. I said no filming, but the damage was already done. People in the waiting room saw Noah, saw the tears, saw the size of him next to all those adults. A mother stood up. That's the boy? She whispered. Another parent rose, then another. The lobby started to shift, chairs scraping, bodies gathering, not to riot but to witness, to show that this wasn't happening in a quiet corner anymore. Outside, through the glass, the riders noticed the movement. Heads turned. A few stepped closer to the sidewalk edge, watching the doors like they were listening with their eyes. Griff stood across the street, arms folded, jaw clenched, still holding his people back. But his gaze locked on Noah in the hallway, and something in Griff's face tightened like a cable. The compliance man cleared his throat. Doctor, he said, trying to regain control, we need access to the treatment area to verify. No, Dr. Patel said. It's required. No, she repeated, and her voice was so firm it stopped being a debate. Klein stepped forward, speaking softly to the officer, not loud enough for Noah to hear, not loud enough for Kara to catch clearly. But Tessa, standing at the desk, saw Klein's lips shape the words and saw the officer's eyes change immediately. The officer turned and started walking toward the hallway. Doctor, he called, voice now official, step away from the patient. Dr. Patel didn't move. Noah backed up toward Mia's doorway, eyes wide with terror, as the officer's hand went to his radio and he said, "We're going in." The officer's boots hit the hallway tile with a sound that didn't belong in a place built for cartoons on walls and tiny blood pressure cuffs. "Doctor," he said again, closer now, "step away from the patient." Dr. Patel didn't move. She stood in the corridor entrance like a locked door. Behind her, inside room 4, the infusion line hung like a lifeline. The pump ticked, the bag dripped. Mia's chest rose shallowly, fighting. Noah backed into the doorway, palms pressed to the doorframe like he could physically hold the room together. "She needs it," he said, voice breaking. "She needs it right now." The compliance man lifted his clipboard, trying to sound clinical. "We are not here to harm anyone. We are here to verify that procedures are being conducted within approved—" "Approved!" Noah repeated, stunned. "She's approved. She's my sister." Klein stood behind the officer, half a step back, letting uniforms do the dirty work while he watched like a man watching his investment mature. Caroline's camera was lowered now, blocked by the woman with the tablet, but Kara's voice carried anyway. "Officer," she called, "are you seriously going to interrupt treatment because a collections company said so?" The officer's eyes flicked toward the lobby where parents had begun clustering, then back to Dr. Patel. He kept his tone even, but the tension was visible in his jaw. "I don't have a choice," he said. Dr. Patel's voice stayed calm. "Yes, you do." The officer hesitated, just a fraction. Then he glanced toward Diane as if searching for someone to hand responsibility to. Diane stood near the front desk, white-faced, hands clasped so tight her knuckles were paper. I didn't ask for this," she whispered, but nobody heard her over the moment. Tessa did. Tessa also saw the way Klein's eyes kept darting to the hallway door, not to Mia, not to Noah, only to the IV pump. Like if he could stop the drip, he could stop the entire story. Outside, through the glass, the sidewalk across the street was packed with riders now, not on the clinic property, exactly where Griff had directed them, exactly legal, exactly visible. Griff stood at the front, arms folded, watching the clinic doors as if he could see through walls. One of the younger riders leaned in and murmured something. Griff didn't answer. His eyes never left the building. Inside, the officer started forward again. "Sir," Dr. Patel said, voice low, "if you enter that room and interfere with the infusion, you're putting a child at risk." The officer's expression tightened. "Doctor, step aside." Noah's breathing turned ragged. He looked from the officer to Dr. Patel like he was watching two adults fight over whether his sister got to keep living. Then, without thinking, Noah did the only thing a 7-year-old could do. He ran. Not away. Toward the front desk. He sprinted down the hall, past cartoon decals and laminated posters about hand-washing, bursting into the lobby with a soundless panic on his face. Tessa's heart jumped into her throat. "Noah!" He slammed both hands on the counter. "Call my mom," he blurted. "Please, call her again. Tell her to come now. Tell her they're stopping it." Diane flinched like she'd been struck. "Noah, honey." "No," Noah snapped, tears spilling. "Don't honey me. You're making her die." Silence hit hard. Every parent in the waiting room heard it. A father stood up fully now, voice shaking with rage. What did he just say? A woman holding a toddler tightened her arms. Are they stopping treatment? Klein stepped forward, trying to keep control of the room. Everyone needs to remain calm. This is a private billing matter. "A private what?" the father barked. Klein's smile returned, thin as paper. "The clinic is under a service suspension," he said, loud enough to drown out the building's humanity. "Procedures conducted under suspension are violations that can endanger the facility and a 5-year-old, someone shouted. Klein ignored it. "We are working toward compliance." A mother's voice cut through like a knife. "Is there a child in the back right now who needs treatment?" Klein turned slightly, as if the question was beneath him. "Ma'am, I cannot discuss patient information." "You can stop it, though," the father demanded. Klein didn't answer because the truth sounded too ugly in plain English. Tessa grabbed the clinic phone and dialed the number on Mia's file. It rang. Rang again. Rang again. No answer. Noah sobbed, wiping his face hard. "She's gonna be late," he whispered. "She always gets late. She's always late when it's bad." Dr. Patel appeared in the lobby doorway at that moment, moving fast, eyes locked on Noah. "Noah," she said, "come back with me." The officer was behind her. The compliance man, too, like a shadow procession. Noah pointed at them, voice rising. "They're doing it," he cried. "They're stopping it." The waiting room shifted again, parents stepping closer, bodies forming a human wall without realizing they were doing it. Not violent, just present, just unwilling to sit down anymore. The officer raised his voice. "Everyone needs to return to their seats." Nobody did. Carolyn took a step forward, eyes flashing. "Officer, look around," she said. "This isn't a riot. This is parents watching a collections company try to pull the plug on a child." The woman with the tablet snapped, "No filming, no recording." Kara held up her phone anyway, not filming the back rooms, not filming Mia, just the lobby, the suit, the badge, the jar of coins. Klein's head turned sharply. "Put that away," he said, the first real crack in his control. Kara's voice stayed flat. "No." Outside, Griff saw the movement in the lobby, saw people rise, saw the officer's posture change. He couldn't hear words through the glass, but he could read the shape of trouble. He turned his head slightly and said something to the rider beside him. The rider nodded once and moved down the line. Within seconds, riders began lifting their phones, not to threaten, not to stream Mia, but to record what they could legally record. Police, compliance officers, a collections rep entering a children's clinic while hundreds of witnesses stood outside. Klein noticed. His eyes flicked to the glass again, then to the officer. He leaned in close and spoke under his breath. "You need to clear them," Klein murmured. "This is becoming a coordinated intimidation effort. If we can establish disorder, we can justify immediate shutdown." Tessa heard that. Not every word, but enough. Immediate shutdown, not safety, not policy. Shutdown. She stared at Klein like she'd finally seen the monster under the professional smile. Diane heard it too. And something changed in her face, something ugly, something like betrayal, because she'd believed this was about keeping the clinic viable. Now she realized it might be about killing it. Dr. Patel stepped forward again, speaking to the officer with a surgeon's calm. "We are continuing the infusion," she said. "If you interfere, you are personally assuming responsibility for the outcome." The officer's mouth tightened. "No," Dr. Patel cut in. "You want to stop me? Arrest me. Don't hide behind a clipboard." The compliance man stiffened. "Doctor, do not obstruct an investigation." "You are obstructing medicine," Dr. Patel snapped. Noah stood between adults who were all taller than him, all louder than him, and he looked like he was shrinking into his own hoodie. Then a new sound cut through the lobby, an incoming ringtone, loud, tinny, panicked, Diane's phone. She fumbled it out of her pocket, saw the caller ID, and her face collapsed. "Megan," she whispered, "Noah's mom." Diane answered, voice cracking. "Megan!" The voice on the other end was raw, frantic. "Where is my son?" Megan shouted so loud the lobby heard it through the phone. "Someone told me Noah walked into the clinic alone. Where is he?" Noah turned his head sharply. "Mom!" Megan's breath hitched through the speaker. "Noah! Noah, where are you?" "I'm here," he cried. "I'm here and they're trying to stop Mia's medicine." A sound came from Megan that wasn't a word, more like a piece of her breaking. "Put someone on," Megan demanded. "Put a doctor on the phone, now." Dr. Patel stepped forward and took the phone gently from Diane. "Ms. Briggs," she said. Megan's voice shook. "Doctor, is my daughter getting her infusion?" Dr. Patel looked straight at Klein as she answered. "Yes," she said. "We started it because she's unstable." "Don't stop it," Megan whispered, as if saying it softly would make it easier to obey. "We're not," Dr. Patel said. Then Klein stepped forward, raising his voice just enough to reach the phone. "Ms. Briggs," he called. "This is Darren Klein with Commonwealth Medical Recovery. Your account is delinquent. The clinic is under suspension. If they continue treatment, they risk closure. We can discuss payment options immediately." Megan screamed into the phone. "You called my workplace and told me my child couldn't be treated." Klein kept his tone even. "We informed you of the suspension status, ma'am." "You're evil," Megan hissed, voice shaking with fury. "You're standing in a kid's clinic talking about money while my daughter—" Klein's eyes narrowed. "Ma'am, if you cannot remain civil—" "Civil?" Megan's voice broke. My son walked there alone with a jar of coins because you scared him. You did that. Every parent in the waiting room stared at Klein now, like the room's temperature dropped around him. Carolyn took one slow step back, framing the scene without filming a single child, and whispered into her mic. The mother's on the phone. She says her 7-year-old came alone with coins. This is escalating. The officer lifted his radio, voice low. Dispatch, we need additional units for crowd control, he said, eyes on the lobby. Outside, more cruisers began to roll in at the far end of the street. Griff watched them arrive, jaw clenched. He didn't move his riders forward. He didn't need to. The scene was already turning into a pressure cooker. Inside, Dr. Patel handed the phone back to Diane. Megan is on her way, she said, then turned to the officer again. You are not going into room 4. The officer took a slow breath, gaze sliding from Dr. Patel to the compliance man, to Klein. He looked like a man who'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Then, the compliance man stepped forward and said, If you refuse access, doctor, we will document obstruction and recommend immediate temporary closure pending review. Diane's knees visibly softened. No, she whispered. Klein's smile returned, small, satisfied, because that was the word he'd been waiting for. Closure. Noah stared at the compliance man, then at Klein, then back toward the hallway where Mia lay with a tube in her arm. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. And then, from the back hallway, a nurse's scream cut through the clinic. Code in room 4! She's crashing! The words hit the lobby like a gunshot. Code in room 4! She's crashing! Every adult froze for half a heartbeat, like the building itself had to decide whether it was still a clinic or just a courtroom with fluorescent lights. Then everything moved at once. Dr. Patel spun and sprinted down the hallway, gloves already on, voice snapping into pure command. Clear the hall! Get the crash cart, now! The oncology nurse flew past her, shouting over her shoulder. Oxygen's dropping. She's gray. Noah jerked toward the hallway like his body wanted to run after them, but Tessa caught his shoulders before he could bolt. Hey, Noah, listen, she said, crouching, trying to make her voice something solid. Stay here with me, okay? Let them work. Noah's eyes were huge. She's dying, he whispered, like he was saying it to himself to make it real enough to stop. No, Tessa lied automatically. No, she's sick. They're helping. But the lobby could hear the chaos now, the wheels of the crash cart rattling, the sharp, urgent voices, the high-pitched alarm from a monitor going off like an accusation. And Klein didn't run. He didn't flinch. He simply took half a step back from the hallway entrance and glanced at the compliance man as if to say, document everything. The compliance man nodded once and started writing. Diane made a small, broken sound. Oh my God, she whispered. Her hands rose to her mouth like she'd just realized she was watching a child drown from the shore. Carolyn's face went tight. She lifted her phone again, not filming the hallway, not filming Mia, just filming the suit and the clipboard and the way they were standing there while a code was called. The woman with the tablet lunged to block her again. Put it away. Kara didn't budge. If they close this clinic during a code, she said through her teeth, the public is going to see the people responsible. The lead officer turned sharply as more parents surged toward the hall. Back, he barked, raising a hand. Everyone back, now! But he wasn't pushing them like suspects. He was pushing them like a dam about to fail. Noah tried to slip past Tessa again. I have to, he cried. Tessa tightened her grip. You can't go in there, she said, voice cracking. You can't. Let them do it. Noah's chest heaved, his hands balled into fists. Then he did something that didn't make sense until you saw the look on his face. He grabbed the coin jar. He yanked it off the counter with both hands and ran toward Klein. Diane gasped. Noah! Noah slammed the jar into Klein's suit jacket hard enough that coins clinked like teeth. Take it, Noah screamed. Take it! It's all I have. Just let her live. The lobby went dead silent except for the alarm screaming down the hall. Klein stumbled back half a step, more offended than hurt. He looked down at the jar pressed into his chest like it was contaminated. For a second, he said nothing. And in that second, everyone saw who he was. Then he set the jar back on the counter with 2 fingers, like it was trash, and said cool and clean, This does not satisfy minimum requirements. Noah stared at him like he couldn't understand a world where those words could exist. The father from the waiting room moved forward. "Are you kidding me?" he snapped. A mother's voice rose behind him. "That's a child." The officer stepped between Klein and the crowd, palms out. "Everyone stay calm," he barked, but his eyes flicked to Klein with something like disgust. Klein didn't notice or didn't care. He leaned toward the compliance man. "This is exactly what I was concerned about," he murmured. "Heightened emotion. Disorder." "Disorder?" Kara shot back. "There's a code being called. That's not disorder. That's medicine." From the hallway, Dr. Patel's voice exploded. "EPI, now. Bag her." The crash cart clattered. The monitor alarm shrieked. Noah made a sound that was half sob, half gasp. His knees buckled, and Tessa caught him as he folded, suddenly weightless in her arms. "No, no, no," he whispered into her shoulder. "Not Mia. Not Mia. I did the jar. I did the jar. I did it." Tessa's own tears burned, but she forced her voice steady. "You did everything you could," she said fiercely. "You did." Diane stumbled forward, eyes wild, and grabbed the compliance man's clipboard. "Stop writing," she hissed. "Stop writing." The compliance man yanked it back. "Ma'am, do not interfere." "I'm the manager here," Diane snapped, voice breaking into something she'd never used before. "And I'm telling you, this is a medical emergency. You are not closing my clinic during a code." Klein's eyes hardened. "Ms. Hargrove," he said softly, "if you refuse to comply, you will be held accountable. Personally." Diane's breath shook. For a moment, it looked like she might collapse. Then she turned to the officer, voice trembling but clear. "If you let them shut us down right now," she said, "and that little girl dies, you're going to remember my face." The officer stared at her, jaw tight. He looked down the hallway where the alarm still screamed. Outside, across the street, Griff saw staff sprinting. He saw the officer's posture shift. He saw the lobby crowd press forward. He couldn't hear the words code from there, but he knew the look. He snapped his head to the rider beside him. "Call the lawyer," he said. "Now." The rider was already dialing. Griff stepped forward to the curb and raised his hand. One sharp, decisive motion. The lines of riders responded instantly. Phones went away, helmets went on. Not to charge, never that, but to move with purpose. A corridor opened on the street, clearing space like they were making room for something heavy to arrive. An ambulance. Griff pointed down the road. Two riders peeled off immediately, engines starting, and shot down the street. Escorts, clearing traffic legally, getting ahead of whatever emergency was about to hit. Inside the clinic, the officer's radio crackled. "We've got additional units arriving," dispatch said. The officer swallowed. "Copy." Then, from the hallway, the alarm suddenly changed, its pitch shifting, not stopping, but different. The kind of sound that meant something had just moved from bad to worse, or bad to better, and nobody in the lobby knew which yet. Everyone held their breath. Dr. Patel's voice came again, hoarse now. Come on," a nurse's voice shaking. "I've got a pulse." Noah's head snapped up. "What?" "I've got a pulse," the nurse shouted louder to someone behind her. "It's weak, but it's there." The waiting room erupted in fractured sounds, crying, gasps, someone whispering, "Thank God!" Someone else sobbing openly. Noah surged to his feet like a spring. "Mia," he choked. She's... Tessa grabbed his hand. "They got something back," she said. "They're still working." The compliance man scribbled faster, as if the words "pulse returned" were just another line item. Klein's mouth pressed into a thin line. He didn't like this turn. Because if Mia lived, the story didn't end with policy compliance. It ended with questions, and questions were dangerous. Cara Lynn stepped close to Klein, voice like ice. "You heard the code," she said. "You watched the child beg with a jar of coins. Are you still going to say this is minimum requirements?" Klein's eyes narrowed. "Ma'am, back away," he said. "No," Cara replied. "Answer." Klein didn't answer her. He turned to the compliance man and said, quietly, but clearly enough that Diane and Tessa heard, "Proceed with the temporary closure recommendation. We'll cite unsafe conditions and external intimidation. This facility won't survive the week." Diane's eyes went wide. So that was it. Not a warning. A plan. And in the hallway, while Mia fought for breath, Dr. Patel stepped out just long enough to shout, "We need blood. We need pediatric O negative now. Do we have it?" The nurse looked stricken. We're low, she admitted. We don't have enough on site. Dr. Patel's face tightened, because an infusion wasn't the only thing Mia needed anymore. She needed blood. And the nearest children's hospital with a full supply was across town, 25 minutes on a good day. Today was not a good day. Outside, Griff saw Dr. Patel in the hall through the side window, saw her mouth form words he couldn't hear. He didn't wait to understand the details. He pulled out his phone and called a number from memory. When the line picked up, Griff spoke one sentence, low and urgent. "It's Mia. We need help now." Griff didn't hang up and wait for permission. He didn't ask for approvals. He did what Cal Briggs used to do when someone was bleeding out on the side of the road. He made the world move. Across the street, his riders were already shifting into a different kind of formation. Not show up, not stand witness, logistics. 2 bikes rolled to the intersection and stopped traffic with hazard lights and hand signals, staying on public roadway, staying legal, staying controlled. Another group split off and headed toward the main avenue in staggered pairs, fast enough to matter, calm enough not to be reckless. Griff turned to the rider who'd been at his elbow since the first call. "Get me the donor list," he said. "Everyone O negative, O positive too, and call the blood bank director. Use Cal's name." The rider nodded and was already tapping his screen, face hard with focus. Inside the clinic, Dr. Patel was back in the hall, speaking in short bursts to the oncology team while she pulled up Mia's chart. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were angry. At the clock, at the shortage, at the fact that children's blood didn't magically appear just because someone demanded it. "We stabilize her here," she said. "We prep transfer. But if blood isn't on site in 10 minutes, she won't tolerate the ride." The nurse swallowed. "We can request an emergency courier from the hospital." 25 minutes, Dr. Patel cut in. "If they even dispatch immediately. We don't have 25. Noah stood a few feet away, silent now, as if his voice had been used up during the code. He watched Dr. Patel's mouth move and didn't understand every word, but he understood the shape of them. Not enough, not in time. He looked at the coin jar on the counter, then at Klein, then at the compliance clipboard. And something new settled in his face, not childish panic. A cold, stunned realization that adults could watch a kid die and call it policy. Megan Briggs burst through the front doors right then. She didn't walk in like a patient's mother. She stormed in like someone who'd been running on pure terror for miles. Her hair was half pulled back, a work badge still clipped to her shirt, cheeks wet, eyes wide and wild. She scanned the lobby once, saw Noah, and the sound she made was half sob, half growl. "Noah!" she cried. Noah ran to her and slammed into her legs, gripping her like he was afraid she would vanish too. Megan dropped to her knees and held him hard, kissing his hair, then his forehead, then pulling back to look at his face. Why did you come alone?" she whispered, voice shaking. "Why didn't you wait for me?" Noah's lips trembled. "They said Mia couldn't," he whispered. "They said today. So I brought the jar." Megan's eyes squeezed shut as if pain physically hit her. Then she stood, still holding Noah's hand, and looked across the lobby, at Diane, at Dr. Patel, at the compliance officers, and finally, at Darren Klein. "Is that him?" she asked, voice low. Nobody answered. Klein adjusted his cuff again, the way he did when he wanted to appear unbothered. "Ms. Briggs," he said smoothly, "I'm Darren Klein. We've spoken. If you'd like to step into a private office..." Megan took one step forward, then another. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She didn't need to. "My coworkers heard it. Where I couldn't, my coworkers heard it. Where I couldn't even cry because I was at a register." Klein's smile held. "We informed you of the account status." "You scared my son into walking here alone," Megan continued, each word clean. "He's 7. You did that." Klein's eyes narrowed slightly. "Ma'am, you are responsible for your child's supervision." The waiting room erupted, angry murmurs, someone swearing under their breath. Megan stared at him like she was studying an insect. "Say that again," she whispered. Klein didn't. He pivoted instead, pointing to the clipboard in the compliance man's hand. "The clinic is in violation," he said. "If you want to save your daughter, comply. Arrange payment. Transfer her to a compliant facility." Dr. Patel stepped forward. She can't tolerate transfer without blood, she said flatly. Klein blinked once like that was inconvenient information. Then the clinic should have maintained appropriate supply, he replied. Diane's face twisted. We're a kids' clinic, not a trauma center, she snapped, finally breaking. You know that. Klein's eyes flicked to Diane, warning. Ms. Hargrove, but Diane didn't shrink this time. You said this was about viability, she spat. You said if we didn't tighten, we'd lose contracts. You didn't say you were trying to kill us. Klein's smile sharpened. Your language is emotional, he said. Unprofessional. Megan turned her head slowly toward Diane. Kill you, she repeated. What does he mean? Diane's mouth opened, then closed, and her eyes filled. Tessa stepped forward before Diane could crumble. He said he wants a closure recommendation, Tessa said. He said the clinic won't survive the week. Klein's gaze snapped to Tessa. That is not... You said it, Tessa cut in. Her voice was shaking, but she didn't stop. You said it while Mia needed blood. Silence slammed down again. Cara Lynn, standing near the side wall, didn't film the children. She didn't film oncology. But she caught Klein's face and the compliance badges and the jar of coins in the foreground like a symbol nobody could deny. Outside, a low rumble returned, not from engines revving, but from engines starting in disciplined waves, a controlled hum like a generator turning on. Through the glass, Griff strode back toward the clinic entrance. He didn't hurry, but everything about him said time mattered. He pushed inside, eyes scanning until he found Dr. Patel. What do you need? He asked. Blood, Dr. Patel said. Pediatric O negative. We're low. We need enough to stabilize for transfer or she won't make it. Griff nodded once, as if the request was simple. Then he turned, looked straight at Megan, and for the first time his expression softened. Megan Briggs, he said quietly. I'm Griff. Megan stared at him, blinking through tears. Cal's... Griff? She whispered. Griff nodded. Yes. Megan's jaw clenched. I told Noah never to call that number, she said, voice breaking. Because I didn't want to owe anyone. Because I didn't want my kids pulled into that world. Griff's eyes stayed steady. Your kid didn't call because he wanted a ride, he said. He called because he didn't want his sister to die. Megan's throat worked. She couldn't speak for a second. Then she whispered, Can you help? Griff didn't answer with words. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. He showed Dr. Patel the screen, an incoming call from a name labeled Blood Bank Director. He answered on speaker. Griff, a man's voice said immediately, tense. I heard. What's the situation? Dr. Patel stepped in, fast, professional. This is Dr. Patel, pediatric patient. We need O negative urgently. Minutes. The voice on the phone exhaled hard. We can release emergency units, he said, but we need a courier with proper handling, and I can't just hand it to... You'll hand it to me, Griff said, calm, and I'll have a medically trained escort. A beat. Then the director said, I'll meet you at the loading bay. 10 minutes. Griff ended the call and looked at Dr. Patel. My guys are already on the road, he said. We'll have blood here. Klein stepped forward, trying to reinsert himself into the center. You are not authorized to transport medical blood products, he said sharply. This is exactly the kind of unsafe condition that... Griff turned his head slowly toward him. You really want to say that out loud right now? He asked. Klein's jaw tightened. Yes, he said, because if unlicensed individuals handle... Dr. Patel cut in like a blade. I will assign a licensed nurse to receive and verify chain of custody, she said. Document it, photograph it, stamp it, I don't care. But you will not delay life-saving blood because you want leverage. The compliance man hesitated, pen hovering. Klein's eyes narrowed. This is still a violation, he said. Diane's voice rose, hoarse with fury. Get out, she snapped at him. Klein smiled, cold. You can't remove me, he said. You're under contract. Megan stepped forward now, still holding Noah's hand. Her voice was quiet, deadly. My daughter's dying, she said. If you are the last adult I see before she either lives or dies, I swear to God, you're going to wish you never learned my name. The officer shifted, uneasy. Cara Lynn's phone remained raised, and outside, through the glass, the first two bikes of the courier run tore past the intersection, escorting a dark van that wasn't marked with a siren, but moved like it carried something more urgent than lights. Noah stared at the van like it was a miracle on wheels. Then he looked up at Griff. "Is that for Mia?" he whispered. Griff crouched slightly, bringing his face closer to Noah's level without softening his voice. "It's for Mia," he said, "and it's because you made the call." Noah's eyes filled again. "I didn't mean to make trouble," he whispered. Griff's jaw tightened. "Kid," he said, "sometimes trouble is the only thing that gets people to do the right thing." In the hallway, a nurse shouted, "Doctor, pressure's dropping again." Dr. Patel spun. "Get the transfusion set ready," she ordered. "The second blood arrives, we hang it." The compliance man lifted his clipboard again, about to write. Klein leaned in, voice low. "Document unsafe crowd presence," he murmured, but the compliance man didn't move his pen. For the first time, he looked at Klein like he wasn't sure he wanted to be associated with this anymore. And as the van rolled into the clinic drive, escorted by bikes, the clinic doors flew open and cold air rushed in, followed by the sound of a new voice outside, loud and official. "Federal investigator, everyone hold position." The words didn't sound real at first. "Federal investigator, everyone hold position." They came from outside the clinic doors, loud enough to cut through the engine hum, loud enough to freeze the lobby mid-breath. Even Klein's smile faltered. The lead officer snapped his head toward the entrance, hand instinctively going to his belt again. Not aggressive, just bracing for whatever headline this had become. The doors pushed open. A woman stepped in, early 30s, dark blazer over a plain shirt, hair pulled back tight, badge on a chain already out. Behind her came two men, one in a windbreaker, one in a suit, both scanning the room like they were counting risk. "I'm Special Agent Rena Alvarez," the woman said, voice controlled, not theatrical. "Office of Inspector General." The room didn't know what to do with that. Parents stared. Diane's mouth opened and closed. The compliance man's pen hovered, suddenly unsure who outranked whom. Klein recovered first. Professional survival instincts. "This is a state matter," he said smoothly, stepping forward. "Medical compliance and billing enforcement." Agent Alvarez didn't even look at him at first. She looked past him at the jar of coins, then at the compliance badges, then at Dr. Patel's face, then at Noah holding his mother's hand. "Who called in the clinic shutdown recommendation?" Alvarez asked. The compliance man cleared his throat. "We received a report of unauthorized procedures." "From who?" Alvarez cut in. "Name." The compliance man blinked, thrown by the directness. His eyes slid to Klein. Alvarez followed his glance and finally turned to Klein. "You," she said, flat. "You're Darren Klein." Klein's smile returned, careful now. "Yes," he said, and you are." "I just told you," Alvarez replied. "And I'm not here because of your suspension notice. I'm here because your company's name showed up in a fraud inquiry tied to pediatric billing pressure." The lobby turned colder. Klein's jaw tightened. "That's a serious allegation," he said. "It's a serious investigation," Alvarez answered, "which is why you're going to stop giving orders in this building." The lead officer stepped in. "Agent, we have crowd control issues outside." Alvarez lifted a hand, not dismissive, just steady. "They're not the issue," she said, eyes flicking briefly to the riders through the glass. "Your dispatch log shows no property damage, no assaults, no obstruction. You have a peaceful assembly." She turned back to the clinic. "The issue is a child in the back on a transfusion clock while a collections rep attempts to create a shutdown event." Klein's nostrils flared. "We're ensuring compliance," he said again, like repeating it could make it truth. Alvarez stepped closer, voice lowering. "Mr. Klein," she said, "I have recorded calls, I have internal emails, I have a whistleblower statement, and I have a very specific question." She pointed at the jar. "Did you instruct staff to tell a parent their child's treatment would be suspended unless a minimum payment was made? Yes or no?" Klein's eyes flicked, microscopic. "I didn't instruct anyone to—" "Wrong answer," Alvarez said calmly. "I'm not asking what you personally instructed. I'm asking whether your company's scripted calls did that. We have the script." Diane's knees almost gave. "Script?" she whispered. Alvarez nodded without taking her eyes off Klein. "Your company uses escalation language to force immediate payments," she said, "in multiple clinics, and in at least 2 cases, those threats were paired with attempted facility takeovers by affiliated real estate entities." The compliance man's pen finally dropped to the clipboard, then stopped. His face drained. Klein snapped, "This is confidential business." Alvarez cut him off. "There's nothing confidential about coercion," she said, "and there's nothing lawful about manufacturing unsafe conditions to justify closure." Tessa felt her skin go prickly. She looked at Diane like, "You heard it too." Diane's eyes filled again, but this time it wasn't helplessness, it was rage. Klein's voice tightened. "Agent Alvarez, you can't walk into a medical facility and disrupt operations." Alvarez turned her head toward Dr. Patel. "Doctor," she asked, "what do you need right now to keep your patient alive?" Dr. Patel didn't hesitate. "Blood. The courier van just arrived. We need a clear path to oncology and we need zero interference." Alvarez nodded once. Then she looked at the lead officer. "Clear the hall," she said. "Your job is now patient safety, not enforcing a collections company's leverage play." The officer blinked. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Yes, ma'am," he said and motioned to his partner. "Hallway stays clear. Nobody goes back except medical staff." The compliance man swallowed hard. "Agent, with respect, we were asked to—" Alvarez turned on him. "By who?" she demanded. The compliance man hesitated. Alvarez's stare didn't move. Finally, he said, "Commonwealth Medical Recovery contacted our hotline, Mr. Klein." Alvarez nodded like she'd just checked a box. "Thank you," she said, and turned back to Klein. "That's obstruction of medical care under false pretenses. Do you want to keep talking?" Klein's mouth opened, then shut. Outside, the escorted van rolled to a stop in front of the entrance. One rider jumped off and opened the rear doors. Inside were coolers, sealed, labeled, handled like fragile gold. A nurse in scrubs came through the lobby doors fast, guided by a rider who stopped at the threshold and didn't step inside. "We have it," the nurse said, breathless. "Oh, negative. 2 units. Verified." Dr. Patel turned and moved like lightning. "Room 4, she ordered. Noah tried to follow, but Megan held him back, knuckles white. "Baby, stay with me," she whispered. "Please." Noah's eyes were locked on the cooler like it was hope in plastic. "She's gonna live?" he asked, voice barely there. Megan's lips trembled. "She's gonna fight," she said, "and so are we." Klein watched the cooler pass, face unreadable now, but something in his posture had changed, because his plan had relied on quiet corridors and scared staff. Now there was a federal badge in the lobby. Now there was a camera. Now there were 500 witnesses outside. Alvarez stepped closer to Klein and lowered her voice again. "You're going to sit," she said, pointing to a chair in the corner. "You're going to keep your hands visible, and you're going to stop contacting anyone." Klein forced a thin smile. "Am I being detained?" Alvarez's expression didn't shift. "You're being prevented from interfering with a medical emergency," she said. "Choose your next move carefully." Klein's eyes flicked to the exit. He didn't run, but he did something else, something small and ugly. He nodded toward the woman with the tablet and murmured, almost inaudible. The woman pulled her phone out and started typing fast. Alvarez saw it. "Hands off the phone," she snapped. The woman froze, startled. Alvarez walked over and took the tablet ID in, eyes sharp. "Who are you texting?" The woman swallowed. "My supervisor." Alvarez held her gaze. "About what?" The woman hesitated. Klein spoke, trying to reclaim ground. "Agent, you're overstepping." Alvarez ignored him. She turned to Diane. "Ms. Hargrove," she said, "do you have access to your clinic's billing notices, suspension emails, any communication from Commonwealth?" Diane nodded shakily. "Yes, in my office, on my computer." "Good," Alvarez said. "Don't touch anything yet, but we're going to preserve it." Caroline's eyes were wide now, but she kept her voice quiet. "Agent Alvarez," she said, "is this related to Medicare or—" "Not discussing," Alvarez said instantly, then softened one notch. "But you can report what you witnessed. A child's care, threatened overpayment, and a company attempting to force a shutdown." Kara nodded, jaw tight. In the hallway, the transfusion began. The IV pump clicked. The line filled dark. The monitor still beeped too fast, but Mia's color began to inch back from the edge. Dr. Patel stood over her, watching like a hawk. Noah pressed his face into Megan's side and whispered, "I'm sorry." Megan bent and kissed his hair hard. Don't, she whispered back. Don't you ever say sorry for trying to save your sister. A nurse came out of oncology 5 minutes later, eyes shining. Her pressure's stabilizing, she said. We have time. We have time to transfer safely. A wave of sound rolled through the lobby. Crying, relief, hands over mouths. Even the officer exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. Alvarez didn't react. She stayed locked on Klein. Now, she said quietly, while the child lives, you're going to tell me about the emails you sent last month to the company that wants to buy this building. Klein's smile finally died. He stared at her, and the room felt the shift, the moment a man realizes the story is no longer his to control. And then, from the corner chair where Alvarez had pointed him, Klein spoke the first honest words he'd said all day. You don't understand who you're dealing with. Alvarez leaned in slightly. Then explain it, she said. Klein swallowed once, eyes flicking to Diane's office door, then back to Alvarez. And in that second, Tessa saw it. Fear. Not of the bikers, not of the police. Fear of what was in those emails. Klein's words hung in the air like a threat that couldn't decide whether it wanted to be quiet or loud. You don't understand who you're dealing with. Agent Alvarez didn't blink. Then explain it, she said. Klein's eyes flicked to Diane's office door again, quick, involuntary, like the truth was sitting on her desktop. He exhaled, forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and tried to pivot. This is above my pay grade, he said. I'm a field rep. Alvarez's voice stayed flat. Field reps don't coordinate building acquisitions, she replied. Field reps don't send internal escalation memos marked trigger closure event. Diane's head snapped up. What? She whispered. Klein's jaw tightened. He'd just been cornered into revealing there was something. Alvarez held her badge steady, then reached into her blazer and produced a folded sheet, printed, highlighted, already labeled. She didn't wave it dramatically. She simply held it at chest height, where Klein couldn't pretend it wasn't real. You recognize this? She asked. Klein stared. His throat moved once. On the paper, the header read, Commonwealth, Internal. Under it, a subject line, Bright Steps, Timeline for Transition, and a sentence in the body, highlighted in yellow. Closure event recommended if voluntary compliance fails. Tessa's stomach dropped. Diane's face drained of color so fast it looked like she'd been unplugged. Carolyn's mouth opened slightly, but she didn't speak. She just kept her phone angled on Klein and the paper, careful not to catch the hallway. Megan's grip on Noah's hand tightened so hard, Noah winced. What does that mean? Megan whispered. Diane answered before anyone else could. Her voice was raw. It means they wanted us closed, she said. They wanted to take the building. Klein's eyes narrowed. You're interpreting corporate language, he said. Alvarez stepped closer. Then interpret this, she said, flipping to the next page. Another header, another subject line. Payment escalation, script revision, pediatrics. Klein's lips pressed into a line. Alvarez read one sentence out loud, not theatrical, just enough to put it in the room where it belonged. Use treatment timing to create urgency. Avoid explicit denial language. Emphasize suspension risk. Noah stared at her, then at his mom. That's what they did, he whispered. They said, today. Megan's face twisted with fury and grief at the same time. She bent down, pressing her forehead to Noah's hair for 1 second, like she needed to keep herself from exploding. The compliance man, who'd been writing all day like a machine, slowly lowered his clipboard. His eyes were on Alvarez now, not on Klein. The lead officer cleared his throat. Agent, he said, quieter. If there's federal, there is, Alvarez cut in, and your role is to keep this stable while medical care continues. That's it. Then she turned back to Klein. Who is transition? She asked. Klein leaned back in the chair, forcing calm. I don't know what you're talking about. Alvarez's eyes stayed steady. You do, she said. There's a shell company listed on the email chain, a property group, a consulting outfit, and it's connected to the same address as Commonwealth's legal counsel. Diane shook her head slowly, like her brain was trying to reject it. We've been fighting balances for months, she whispered. They kept saying it was normal, that we were behind, that if we didn't tighten, we'd get dropped. Alvarez nodded once. That's the squeeze, she said. You scare the clinic, you scare the families, you force emergency payments, and if the clinic resists, she glanced at the jar of coins, you manufacture a shutdown. Klein's smile returned, barely. Speculation, he said. Evidence, Alvarez corrected. And now we're preserving devices. She nodded to the two men who'd entered with her. One of them stepped toward Klein calmly, holding out a sealed evidence bag. Sir, the man said, your phone. Klein's head snapped up. No, he said instantly. The room stiffened. The officer shifted closer. The compliance man took an unconscious step back, like he didn't want to be in the blast radius. Alvarez's voice stayed calm, but it got colder. You can hand it over, she said, or you can make this harder. Klein's eyes darted again, this time toward the entrance, toward the riders outside, toward the cameras, toward the doors that were no longer his escape route. Then he did it. Not dramatic. Just a quick movement of his hand inside his jacket pocket. Tessa saw it first. No, she started. Klein pulled out his phone and thumbed the screen fast, too fast, like muscle memory. Alvarez lunged. Stop! But he'd already hit something, a delete swipe, or a call, or a message. No one could tell which. The man with the evidence bag grabbed Klein's wrist. The officer stepped in immediately, and for the first time all day, his voice carried real authority. Sir, the officer said, hands where I can see them. Klein's face tightened. This is unlawful, he snapped. Alvarez's tone didn't move. It's preservation of evidence, she said, and you just added obstruction. Klein jerked his wrist, trying to pull free. That was the mistake. The officer moved, fast and controlled, turning Klein's arm behind him and guiding him out of the chair. Not brutality, procedure. Klein's briefcase hit the floor with a hard thud. Papers spilled, some blank forms, some notices, and one printed page that slid across the tile and stopped at Megan's feet. Megan stared down at it. Then she knelt, picked it up, and her face changed, like she'd just read the name of the person who set their house on fire. What is it? Dr. Patel asked from the hallway entrance. She'd come out briefly, her gloves off now, eyes still sharp. I have a stabilized patient and a transfer window. What is happening? Megan held the page up with a shaking hand. This, she said. Alvarez's eyes flicked to it, then narrowed. It was a document titled, Notice of Facility Transfer, Lease Assignment Initiated, and in the bottom corner, in neat typed letters, Proposed New Operator, Northridge, Urgent Pediatrics, LLC. Tessa felt dizzy. That's not real, she whispered. That's not... Diane made a small sound. Northridge, she breathed. They approached us last year. They said they wanted to partner. We said no. Alvarez's expression hardened. It's real enough to be attempted, she said. Klein, now held by the officer, forced out a laugh that sounded like he hated it. You think stopping me stops them? He said. You have no idea how many clinics they're lining up. Alvarez stepped close, voice low. Then you're going to tell me, she said. Klein's eyes glittered. Or what? Alvarez didn't answer him. She turned to Diane instead. Ms. Hargrove, is your billing software cloud-based? Diane nodded, stunned. Yes, vendor access, remote support. Alvarez's face tightened. Then we need to assume someone can alter records, right now. Dr. Patel's voice snapped from the hallway. Agent, she said, stepping forward. I'm transferring Mia to Children's downtown in 15 minutes. I need a clear route, and I need those bikes to keep traffic open. Alvarez nodded once. Done, she said, then looked at the lead officer. Coordinate with the riders, keep it lawful, keep it safe, escort the ambulance. The officer hesitated, then nodded. Understood. Outside, Griff was already moving when he saw the shift inside, saw Klein restrained, saw the federal badge taking control. He didn't smile. He just lifted his hand and pointed down the road again. 2 more bikes rolled out, then 4, then 8, forming a clean escort plan at intersections like a practiced drill. Inside, Noah tugged Megan's sleeve. Mom, he whispered. Mia, is she coming here? Megan crouched, voice shaking as she tried to sound certain. They're taking her to a bigger hospital, she said, to keep her safe. Noah swallowed. I want to go, he whispered. You will, Megan promised. Dr. Patel turned back toward oncology. "We move her now," she said to the nurse. "Let's go." Carolyn leaned toward Alvarez, quiet but intense. "Agent," she asked, "are you saying a collections company tried to force a children's clinic to close so someone else could take over the building?" Alvarez looked at her for a long beat. "I'm saying you just witnessed the first layer," she replied, and then the back doors in the hallway burst open as staff wheeled Mia's gurney out, small body strapped in, oxygen on, transfusion running, monitor beeping steady but fragile. The entire lobby parted like water. Noah saw Mia for 1 second as she rolled past. Her eyes were half open. She turned her head the tiniest amount, and she lifted 2 fingers, barely, toward Noah. Noah let out a sound that wasn't a word. He tried to run after her. Megan grabbed him, pulling him close, whispering, "We're right behind her." The ambulance doors outside opened. The rider escort tightened formation, and as Mia was loaded in, Klein, still held, leaned toward Alvarez and said, low enough only she could hear, "They already have someone inside your clinic." Alvarez's eyes snapped to him. "What did you just say?" she demanded. Klein's smile returned, ugly. "You'll find out," he whispered. Then, in Diane's pocket, her computer access badge pinged with a notification, one she hadn't triggered. Remote login. Active now. The ambulance pulled away with Mia inside, oxygen hissing, transfusion dripping, the monitors beep steady but thin. And the moment those doors shut, the clinic didn't exhale. It got colder. Diane stared at the notification on her badge like it was a gun pointed at her chest. Remote login. Active now. "I didn't log in," she whispered. Agent Alvarez was already moving. "Where's your terminal?" she asked. "My office," Diane said, voice shaking. "Back there." Alvarez turned to one of her men. "With me, now." Then to the lead officer. "Keep the lobby controlled. No one enters offices. No one touches computers." The officer nodded. Finally in a lane he understood. "You heard her," he barked to the compliance pair. "Stay put." The compliance woman lifted her chin. "We're authorized." "Not anymore," Alvarez snapped without looking back. Klein, still held near the corner, watched them go with a small, satisfied twitch in his mouth, like he'd dropped a match and now he was watching the carpet catch. Noah tugged Megan's sleeve again, voice thin. "Are they doing something to Mia?" Megan swallowed hard and forced herself to focus on him. "Mia's in the ambulance," she said. "She's going to the big hospital. She's safe right now." Noah's eyes flicked to the hallway, then back to the doors. "Then why are you scared?" Megan didn't have an answer that wouldn't break him. Tessa did, quietly, to herself. Because if someone could turn off a child's care, they could turn off anything. Alvarez and Diane reached the office door. Diane's keycard shook in her hand as she swiped it. The lock clicked. Alvarez pushed the door open and froze. Diane's computer screen was awake, not on the login page, already inside. A cursor moved by itself, calm and deliberate, clicking through folders like someone was seated at the desk. Alvarez stepped in fast. Don't touch it," she told Diane. "Just watch." On the screen, an email window opened. Subject line: Bright Steps, finalized today. A file attached, updated_ledger.xlsx. The cursor dragged it into a folder labeled Archive, then another file. Patient_balance_export.csv, dragged, archived. Alvarez's eyes narrowed. "They're staging," she said. "Staging what?" Diane whispered, throat raw. "Cover," Alvarez replied. "They're moving records where they want them before anyone can stop it." Alvarez turned to her man. "Photograph the screen. Timestamp. Start a capture." He pulled out a device and began recording. The cursor clicked again. This time, it opened the clinic's billing portal. A list of accounts appeared. Mia Briggs was near the top. Diane's breath hitched. The cursor selected Mia's account and changed a field. Status, active, to status, non-compliant. Suspend services. Diane made a strangled sound. "No," she whispered. Alvarez's voice went deadly calm. "They're rewriting the story," she said. "After the ambulance leaves, they mark it as suspended, so it looks like the clinic ignored policy, not that they forced it." The cursor moved to another field. Notes: Family informed, refused payment plan, threatening staff. Tessa wasn't in the office, but if she had been, she would have thrown up. Alvarez turned to Diane. "Can you cut the internet?" she asked. Diane shook her head. "We have a central router in the supply closet, password protected." Alvarez's man was already scanning the room. "There," he said, spotting a small Wi-Fi router blinking on a shelf behind a stack of binders. Diane's eyes widened. "That's the secondary unit, for vendor support." Alvarez's jaw tightened. "Of course it is." She stepped forward and yanked the power cord. The screen froze for half a second. Then a message popped up. "Remote session lost." And immediately after, another, "Automatic reconnect in 10, 9, 8. Alvarez snapped, "Kill everything." Her man grabbed the router and crushed the reset button with a pen. Diane lunged to the wall and flipped the office breaker switch that controlled the workstation bank. The screen went black. Silence. Then, from Diane's desk phone, a line lit up. "Caller ID unknown." It rang. Once, twice. Alvarez stared at it like it was a snake. "Don't answer," Diane whispered. It rang again, then stopped. A second later, Diane's email app pinged on her phone, still connected via cellular. New message from vendor.support at no subject, just one line in the body. "Turn it back on or you lose everything." Diane's face crumpled. They're inside everything," she breathed. Alvarez grabbed Diane's phone gently. "They're trying to scare you into restoring access," she said. "We're not doing that." She handed it back and turned toward the door. "We lock this room down," she said. "Then we preserve every device. Then we trace the access logs." Diane's voice shook. "What if they already changed things? What if they already made it look like we... Alvarez's expression softened one notch. "That's why I'm here," she said. "Because you're not the first clinic this has happened to." Diane blinked. "How many?" Alvarez didn't answer directly. She only said, "Enough." They moved back into the hallway. In the lobby, Klein was standing again, hands still controlled, wrists no longer held tight because the officer had relaxed just enough to assume he'd won. Klein saw Alvarez's face and read it instantly. "You saw it," he said, almost proud. Alvarez's eyes locked on him. "Who has vendor access?" she demanded. "Names." Klein smiled. "I told you," he said quietly. "You don't understand who you're dealing with." Alvarez stepped closer. "Talk," she said. Klein's smile widened. "You'll never prove it was us," he whispered. "And by the time you try, the clinic will be closed and the building will be under new management." Megan's voice snapped through the lobby, sharp as glass. "Not if you're in handcuffs." The lead officer turned his head toward Alvarez. "Agent," he said low. "Do you want him detained?" Alvarez held Klein's gaze for one more beat. Then she said, clear and final, "Yes." The officer moved, cuffs clicking. Klein didn't fight. He leaned in as the metal closed and murmured something so quiet only Alvarez could hear. Alvarez's face didn't change, but her eyes did. Because whatever Klein said wasn't a threat about paperwork. It was about Noah. Noah, standing by the door with his mother, looked up at the sound of cuffs and asked, small and confused, "Is it over now?" Megan swallowed, eyes wet. "Not yet," she whispered. And at that exact moment, Megan's phone buzzed with a notification from an unknown number. A photo, no message, just a picture taken from somewhere behind them, inside the clinic, showing Megan and Noah in the lobby, from an angle that meant the photographer was still here. Watching. Megan's phone buzzed again before she could even process the first photo. Her screen showed the image full frame, her and Noah by the lobby doors, Noah's small hand clenched in hers, both of them caught in a candid angle that could only have been taken from inside the clinic. From close. From someone who didn't want to be seen. No text, no warning, just proof. Megan's face drained. Her fingers tightened around the phone until her knuckles whitened. Alvarez saw it immediately. "Let me see," she said. Megan held the phone out with a shaking hand. Alvarez studied the photo, then lifted her eyes and scanned the lobby like a predator. Tessa did the same, heart slamming. The waiting room was still full. Parents, kids, staff, cops. Compliance officers pinned in place, Klein being escorted toward the exit. Diane standing rigid like her body had forgotten how to sit. And somewhere in that normal-looking chaos, someone had taken that picture. Who else has access to this building? Alvarez asked Diane without taking her eyes off the crowd. Diane swallowed hard. Cleaning crew, vendor support, maintenance, the landlord's security. The landlord, Alvarez repeated, sharp. Diane nodded, eyes glassy. They have cameras, key fobs, a master. Alvarez turned to the lead officer. Lock down exits, she said. Nobody leaves without being seen. Quietly. No panic. The officer nodded and motioned to 2 units. They moved to the front doors and the side hallway exit with controlled urgency. Klein paused mid-step as the officer tightened his grip. What's this? Klein asked, voice light, almost amused. Alvarez didn't answer him. She stepped closer to Carolyn. You, she said. Did you capture faces in the lobby? Kara blinked. Only public areas, no kids, no patient rooms. Good, Alvarez said. Keep it rolling. You're not our evidence chain, but you're our daylight. Kara's jaw tightened. She lifted her phone slightly higher. Noah stared at Megan's screen, trying to understand why a picture was making adults turn into stone. Mom, he whispered, who took it? Megan couldn't lie. Not now. Someone bad, she said quietly. Someone who thinks they can scare us. Noah's lips trembled, but he didn't cry this time. He just looked toward the crowd, eyes searching, like he was trying to spot a shadow that didn't belong. Alvarez held Megan's phone, zoomed in on the photo, and studied the reflection in the glass behind them. A sliver of hallway. A fragment of a face. Not enough for certainty, but enough to know it wasn't a parent, not a nurse, not a cop. Diane, Alvarez said, show me your staff roster, everyone scheduled today, everyone with vendor badges. Diane's hands shook as she pulled her office keys. In the office? No, Alvarez said instantly. Not that office. Devices are compromised. We do it on paper. Diane blinked, then fumbled in a drawer at the desk, pulling out printed schedules. She spread them on the counter with trembling fingers. Tessa leaned in, eyes scanning names, shifts, notes. And then she saw it. A name she didn't recognize under maintenance vendor assist. J. Rowland, 11-3. Tessa's stomach clenched. Who is J. Rowland? She asked. Diane stared. I don't know. Alvarez's eyes narrowed. You don't have a Rowland, she said. Diane shook her head again, panic rising. We have Marcus, we have Theo. We don't have... Alvarez looked up. Then someone signed in under a fake name. The officer at the side exit spoke into his radio. We've got a male attempting to leave through the service hall, he said. Black cap, maintenance jacket. Alvarez's head snapped. Stop him, she said. The lobby froze again, watching the officer move. Parents instinctively pulled their children closer. The riders outside shifted, heads turning as they sensed a second crisis. Griff's posture tightened across the street, ready to react but not move unless called. The service hall door opened. A man stepped out, average height, head down, clipboard in hand like it was camouflage, maintenance jacket, cap low. He walked fast but not running, like someone who wanted to look normal. The officer raised his voice. Sir, stop right there. The man paused, turned slightly, and for a split second, Tessa saw his face. Not local staff, not someone she'd seen in 5 years behind that desk. His eyes flicked to the cameras, to the badges, to Klein being let out. Then he bolted. He didn't sprint toward the street. He sprinted deeper into the building. Go! Alvarez snapped. 2 officers chased, boots pounding. The man slammed through a side door that led toward the clinic's rear corridor, the one that connected to storage, vendor access, and the little back stairwell nobody used unless they were fixing wiring. Alvarez was already moving. She grabbed Megan's shoulder lightly. Stay here, she ordered. Do not follow. Megan's face was tight with terror. My daughter is in an ambulance, Alvarez said. This is about you and your son now. Megan nodded barely. Noah stared at the fleeing man's direction, then whispered. He took the picture. It wasn't a question. It was the first time he sounded sure of anything. Tessa watched Alvarez disappear down the corridor with the officers, then felt the lobby tilt again into something unreal. Diane gripped the counter. If someone has been inside our system, she whispered, if they can change records, if they can... Kara's voice came low. Then this isn't just a debt collector, she said. It's a racket. Outside, Griff's phone buzzed. He looked down, read one line, and his face hardened. He stepped to the curb and raised his hand, not to move the whole group, just to signal two riders near the corner. They peeled off immediately, engines starting, heading around the block to cut off the rear stair exits. Still lawful, still controlled, still faster than a building's hallways. Inside, the chase echoed, distant shouting, doors slamming. Then a sharp crash. A metal clang like something heavy hitting a stair rail. A grunt. And then silence. Alvarez's voice echoed faintly from somewhere deep. Hands! Hands where I can see them! Another voice, male, breathing hard, not pleading, not angry, laughing under his breath. You're too late, the man said. Alvarez's reply was ice. For what? The man coughed once, then spoke one sentence that snapped the whole building's blood cold. They don't need the clinic anymore. They already got what they came for. Tessa's stomach turned. Megan's knees almost buckled. Noah looked up at his mother, eyes wide again. What did he take? He whispered. And right then, Megan's phone rang. Hospital number, Children's downtown. Megan snatched it up with shaking hands. Hello? Hello? A nurse's voice came through, fast and urgent. Ms. Briggs? This is Children's downtown. Your daughter arrived. She's stable. But there's a problem with her insurance authorization. Our system shows her treatment was suspended for non-compliance earlier today. We need clarification immediately, or we can't continue the next step. Megan's face went blank, because someone had already rewritten the record, and Mia's life was still being held hostage, just in a bigger building now. Megan couldn't breathe. The nurse's voice on the phone kept going, brisk and polite, like it was reading from a checklist instead of standing over a child who'd almost died. Ms. Briggs, we need confirmation that the suspension notice was an error or has been reversed. Otherwise, our billing system flags continued treatment as unauthorized. Megan stared at the clinic lobby like it had become a trap with a new shape. No, she whispered, then louder, sharper. No, she is in your building. You have her. She is stable because they transfused her. You cannot stop now. I'm sorry, the nurse said. I'm not saying we will stop emergency stabilization, but the next step requires authorization. Megan's voice broke into a hard sob that sounded like rage. It was falsified, she choked out. They changed the record while the ambulance was leaving. They're doing it on purpose. Agent Alvarez snapped her head toward Megan. Put it on speaker, she said. Megan's thumb fumbled. Then the nurse's voice filled the lobby. Alvarez stepped closer to the phone. This is Special Agent Rena Alvarez, Office of Inspector General, she said, calm and official. Do not delay medically necessary care for this child over an electronic flag that is currently part of a fraud investigation. Silence on the line. Then the nurse's tone changed, still professional, but suddenly careful. Agent Alvarez, okay, I need to get my supervisor and our patient access manager on this call. Do it, Alvarez said, now. The nurse didn't argue. One moment, Megan covered her mouth with her free hand, trembling. Noah clung to her side, eyes locked on the phone like it was the only thing keeping Mia alive now. Klein, cuffed near the doors, watched Megan with a small tilt of his head, as if he enjoyed how helpless a mother looked when a screen decided her daughter's fate. Alvarez saw that look. She stepped toward him and spoke low enough that only he could hear. You wanted leverage, she said. Now you're going to watch it disappear. Klein's smile was thin. You're going to lose her anyway, he murmured. Not because we stop care, because the system will. That's cleaner. Alvarez didn't react outwardly. She turned away, pulled her own phone out, and dialed without hesitation. No dramatic announcement, just action. While it rang, she nodded at her partner. Get the router and every vendor access log, now. Pull building security footage too. Front lobby, service hall, stairwell. Her partner moved. The lead officer keyed his radio. All units, maintain the perimeter. We have a suspect in custody in the rear corridor. No one leaves. Tessa stood frozen behind the desk, hands gripping the edge so hard her fingers hurt. She felt like she was watching two wars at once, one in the hospital across town, one in the wires inside their walls. Diane's eyes were glassy. If they can mark a child non-compliant, she whispered. How many have they done this to? Alvarez didn't answer Diane. She was listening to the call on her own phone. Then she spoke. Yes, she said. I need the regional liaison for Children's Downtown and your patient access director, immediately. This is an OIG fraud escalation tied to pediatric care interruption. She hung up and turned back to Megan. They're going to try to stall you with policy language, she said. They won't stall me. The nurse came back on speaker. Ms. Briggs, I have my supervisor, and patient access is joining. A second voice entered, older, firmer. This is Elaine Carter, nursing supervisor. Agent Alvarez, we have to operate under our authorization. Alvarez cut in, still calm. Elaine, listen carefully. Your system flag is contaminated. It was altered today during an active medical emergency. You will continue medically necessary treatment while we override the administrative status. If you need a name to put on the authorization, you put mine and your legal counsel's. A beat of silence. Then Elaine exhaled. We can continue on emergency authorization pending verification, she said. Megan's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed the desk for balance. So you'll keep treating her? She whispered. Yes, Elaine said, we will. We have a pediatric oncologist reviewing her case now. Megan squeezed her eyes shut and let out a sound that was pure relief and pain together. Noah looked up. She's okay? He asked, voice tiny. Megan bent down and held his face. She's alive, she whispered. She's alive. But Alvarez wasn't done. She leaned toward the phone. I also need the exact timestamp and user ID for the suspension entry in your system, she said, and I need it preserved. Do not allow any automated cleanup or overwrites. Elaine's tone sharpened. Understood. I'll have IT lock the audit trail. Alvarez nodded once and ended the call. The lobby exhaled like it had been underwater. Then Diane's phone pinged again, another notification from the clinic network. Not a threat this time. A system alert. Vendor access terminated. Someone, inside Commonwealth or inside their shell, had cut the remote connection, trying to wipe footprints. Alvarez's eyes narrowed. Too late, she said quietly. A uniformed officer came in from the rear corridor, breathing hard. Agent, he said. We've got the maintenance guy. He had 2 phones and a flash drive in his jacket. Alvarez's head snapped. Bag it. Seal it. Now. The officer nodded and turned away. Klein's smile finally faltered. Who is he? She demanded, pointing toward the rear hall like he'd just realized his someone inside wasn't getting out clean. Megan's voice was hoarse. Who is he? She demanded, pointing toward the rear corridor. Alvarez's expression hardened. We'll find out, she said. But we already know why he was here. Tessa swallowed. To change records, she said. Alvarez nodded. And to scare you into silence, she replied, glancing at Megan's phone. That photo was a message. Megan's hands shook again, but her voice changed. Less fear, more steel. It didn't work, she said. Noah looked at the coin jar still on the counter, then at Griff through the glass doors across the street. Griff had been watching the ambulance leave, the police arrive, the federal badge take control. He'd said almost nothing. But his people had stayed, not cheering, not celebrating, just staying. Griff stepped inside now, slow, controlled, and stopped a respectful distance from Megan and Noah. Megan looked at him, eyes wet. They're treating her, she whispered. The hospital's continuing. Griff nodded once. Good, he said. Noah stared up at him. Is Mia going to come home? He asked. Griff's jaw tightened. He crouched slightly again, bringing himself closer to Noah's level. She's got to fight, he said. But she's got people now. A lot of people. Noah swallowed. I only had the jar, he whispered. Griff reached into his jacket and pulled something out. A small metal patch, winged wheel, clean, polished, the same symbol that had been on Noah's jar sticker, but this one looked like it had been worn and kept safe. He held it out, not forcing it, just offering. This was Cal's, Griff said. He told me if anything ever happened to him and his kids ever needed us, we don't show up with words. We show up with numbers. Noah stared at it like it was too heavy to touch. Megan's eyes filled again. Cal said that? She whispered. Griff nodded. He did, he said. And today you saw what it means. Noah reached out slowly and took the patch with both hands. It wasn't money. It wasn't medicine. But it was proof that his father had left him something stronger than a jar of coins. Around them, the lobby had changed. Not fixed, never fixed, but changed. The compliance officers were no longer writing. The police weren't pushing families back. Diane looked like someone who'd finally decided what side she was on. Agent Alvarez turned to Diane. "We're placing this clinic's records under preservation order," she said. "You will cooperate, and you will not speak to Commonwealth or any vendor without us present." Diane nodded, voice hoarse. "I will," she said. Then she looked at Megan. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I let them scare me." Megan stared at her for a long second, then nodded once. "Be scared later," she said. "Help now." Diane swallowed and nodded again. Carolyn stepped closer, phone lowered now, voice quieter. "Ms. Briggs," she asked gently, "when your daughter is stable, would you be willing to speak on camera, just you, no kids, no medical details, about what happened?" Megan looked at Noah, then at the jar, then at the door where Mia had been wheeled out. She didn't answer with emotion. She answered like a decision. "Yes," she said, "because if they did this to us, they're doing it to someone else." Outside, a few riders started their engines again, not revving, not celebrating, just preparing to escort Megan and Noah to Children's downtown the moment Alvarez gave the okay. Griff stood and looked at Alvarez. "You need anything else?" he asked. Alvarez met his eyes. "Keep them calm," she said. "Keep them visible. If anyone tries to move evidence or intimidate witnesses, I want people watching." Griff nodded once. "They'll watch," he said. Noah held the patch in his hands and looked at the coin jar one last time. He didn't look ashamed of it anymore. He looked like he understood what it had started. Megan squeezed his hand. "We're going to your sister," she said. Noah nodded, still silent, but steady now. And as they stepped toward the doors, toward the bikes, toward the hospital, toward whatever fight was next, Klein, being led away in cuffs, glanced back at Noah. For a moment, his face showed something close to panic, because the story he'd tried to bury with paperwork had escaped. Not with violence, not with threats, with witnesses, with a child, with a jar of coins that made the whole world look.